Well, the B-52 might just fly forever, but its 1960s era engine certainly won't, and that's why it's such a big deal that the mighty Buff is finally getting all new and much more efficient turbofan engines. Now, the B-52 Stratofortress has been a staple of American air power since 1955, with the last new B-52 airframe delivered to the Air Force like 64 years ago now. But despite its advancing age, this heavy payload strategic bomber keeps finding new uses for the Air Force. In fact, the B-52 is now expected to stay in service for the foreseeable future, while new bombers built to replace it, like the B-1B Lancer, aren't expected to see the end of the 2030s. So, how has the B-52 managed to stay airborne for so long when much newer aircraft, like the A-10, are considered too outdated for the modern fight? Well, it really comes down to a combination of the B-52's design intentions and the role it ultimately found itself filling for the Air Force. The B-52 was over-engineered right from the start, partially because it was being fielded amid a rapid technological transition from prop-driven to jet-powered aircraft, but also because the bomber was always meant to be capable of delivering nuclear weapons. Now that means the B-52 needed to be able to fly great distances with massive payloads, with plenty of space to add upgrades down the road, while still being tough enough to withstand air-to-air combat back when even the B-52 came equipped with a tail gunner. As the years pressed on, all that extra space for upgrades came in really handy, and the B-52 became America's premier missile truck, and honestly, a lot more. With its external pylons originally rated to carry huge 5,000-pound munitions, and later upgrades aiming to increase that to nearly 20,000, B-52s have become priceless air-launched test platforms, deploying everything from the Mach 6.7 rocket-powered and manned X-15 back in 1959 to the Air Force's latest AGM-183 Aero hypersonic missile in testing just last year. And like the B-52's missile truck role, these jobs don't require aggressive wing-bending flying to be accomplished. And that is important because it's played a huge role in the B-52's longevity. Newer bombers like the B-1B Lancer were designed for low-level penetration flying nap of the earth and maneuvering around the terrain. In comparison, B-52s fly a lot more like commercial airliners, engaging targets from so far away that the massive Buff doesn't even show up on radar. But believe it or not, the B-52 is still flying with the same 8 practically ancient Pratt & Whitney TF-33 turbofan engines that it started out with, each of which produces around 17,000 pounds of thrust, and the B-52's classic smoke trails. Now, despite limited upgrades over the years, these engines are just way too old to keep in service. In fact, they've been out of production for as many years as I've been alive. And you won't be surprised to hear that engine technology has actually matured a lot since then. So now the B-52 will receive 8 new Rolls-Royce F-130 turbofan engines derived from their much more efficient BR-725 commercial engine. Now these new power plants will produce that same 17,000 pounds of thrust, but while offering much more range, more loiter time, and a huge drop in maintenance requirements. Now, we can't say exactly how much more range the B-52 will get from these engines. Estimates currently span from as little as 10% to as much as 30%, but we can speak to how this range extension is being accomplished. You see, the B-52's current engines were derived from earlier turbojets, and they have an extremely low bypass ratio, or the amount of air that passes around the engine core versus the amount that's compressed, mixed with fuel, and ignited within it. Now, low bypass engines are, broadly speaking, a lot less efficient, but a lot better at producing power. That's why modern fighter engines also have very low bypass ratios today. And back in the 50s, that was just about the only way to get enough power onto this bomber to make it fly. So while today's B-52 engines have a bypass ratio of only around 1.2 to 1, Its new F-130s have a bypass ratio of 4.2 to 1, meaning the engines effectively move a lot more air with a lot less work, making them way more efficient in how they burn fuel without any compromise in speed or payload capacity. And that's actually just the beginning of this B-52 upgrade, so let me know if you want to hear more.